So today we have Ramya Ramamurthy in the studios. Hi Ramya.
Hello, and may I congratulate you on getting the pronunciation of my name absolutely right, because it's like one of those tests when you meet people, right?
Like a tongue twister.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm partially South Indian.
Oh.
My dad was Telugu.
Oh, so then
I think
you cheated.
I don't qualify. I took both in a wrong place to get this right. So I was going through your profile, and it is impressive, from media to this NGO and this like humongous project that you're running, or the ambitious idea that you have you're working towards. Please tell us more about it.
Okay, so the story so far for me is that I spent many years in the media landscape. I was a broadcast journalist. I worked with CNBC TV18. I produced and reported on a show called Storyboard, which was about advertising and marketing.
Okay.
Spent 4 years there and then started directing and producing documentaries. Worked on amazing stuff for Nat Geo and Star World.
Okay.
It was an amazing life, but then I sort of, you just have to keep evolving with the times. And I've done a bit of digital media, producing content for YouTube and stuff like that. And then the last thing I did was write a book on work that I'd done through CNBC on basically business of brands.
Right.
So the book is called Rebuild. It was commissioned by Hachette, the publishing house Hachette, and it's looking at 20 or 23 of the biggest failures in brands in the Indian landscape, and how did they recover. So it's stories of how you rebuild your brand in the ecosystem.
So till this moment, everything was just going so cool as a branding person, marketing person, media person. Then what happened?
I think I sort of had this sort of moment where I thought, okay, do I want to keep working for myself, or do I want to work on something that's a little larger than myself? And there's also like this growing consciousness about, just our planet, our only home, and what we're doing to it, and how we need to act fast if we need to save it.
Right.
So that led me to this amazing organization called the Good Food Institute.
Right.
And they had set up in India to sort of launch the ecosystem and build the ecosystem for alternative protein, or what we call plant-based meats, as well as cultivated or clean or cell-based meat, eggs and dairy.
Okay.
And the reason they exist, or the reason we exist, is that raising animals and then killing them for food causes a lot of environmental harm.
Okay.
It's bad in terms of animal welfare.
Right.
There's a lot of antibiotics, and there's a lot of diseases that stem from that sort of
we
industrial
know that
agriculture.
With the recent virus.
The coronavirus is just bearing that truth. And there is a better way to do it. So if you offer people a better way to eat meat, which doesn't have all these negative externalities, at the same taste, at the same price.
So it is not meat.
It is meat. In the case of cultivated meat, it's actually a sample of a cell taken from an animal, grown in a controlled environment, and it resembles meat on a cellular, structural level.
Okay.
Plant-based is made from plant-based sources like soy or pea protein or plant protein.
So it tastes and the texture and everything is like meat, but it's vegetarian meat.
So this one is made from plants, and the other one would be made from cells of animals. So it is actually for non-vegetarians.
Yeah.
Even generally, plant-based meat, if you see companies like Impossible Foods or Beyond Meat, Beyond Meat has had a blockbuster IPO last year.
Right.
They're actually catering to meat eaters in the West, because they resemble meat so significantly that in a blind test, you wouldn't be able to tell the two apart.
Okay.
So that's why
1 year ago, I turned vegetarian.
Oh, wow.
And for me, you have those moments where you crave your old tastes and, you want to get back. It's just that when I turned, the reason was moreover being animal friendly, and that was the reason. So I haven't gotten back. But this is a great
something like
alternative.
this you could have without the guilt, right?
Yeah.
And there's no reason to guilt, and there's no reason to sacrifice what you love, because the truth is that we all love eating meat.
Right.
2018 was the year we ate the most meat in the world.
Really?
Yeah. So
there are so many of us.
Yeah. And it's also like meat eating as a habit is growing. As people get wealthy, they want more protein. They want to eat well.
Right.
So why guilt people into giving up something they love? Why not give them something that's a simple switch?
Right.
So that's what we're working on. Yeah.
And then you also have a podcast.
So we decided that this was quite a complicated sort of concept for people to grasp. And the best way to sort of tell people what we do seemed to be this format, which allows for such intimate, intricate conversation.
Right.
So we designed a 10-part series called Feeding 10 Billion, where we spoke to entrepreneurs, investors, restaurateurs, people from across the food service spectrum,
Right.
from across the food system, researchers, food historians.
Wow.
And, find out where have we come from and where are we going to go? So what are we going to
And
feed
why
ourselves?
are we going the way that we are going right
and how
now?
do we fix the problems along the
Right.
way, right? Because we have that opportunity in India where meat consumption is fairly low per capita.
Right.
But if we don't watch out with our growing population and our growing affluence, we basically, Sub-Saharan Africa, India and China will be the biggest meat consumers in the coming years. So we need to be careful.
So we do have a problem at hand.
We do, and a very large and a very sort of undeniable one. And unless we act now, it could become quite tough for us and for the environment, obviously.
Wow. So you are highly driven by your passion to do this.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's like a crazy step that you made from media, set career to this.
It wasn't a crazy step though, because I went from writing a book about building brands and perception
Right.
to working as a communications person for a company or a non-profit that's trying to build the ecosystem from the ground up. So
Right.
it's sort of strategic communications, PR, brand building, marketing. It's adjacent.
Right.
It's not really a big leap of faith for me.
Okay.
But I think the difference is here that I'm working on something that seems to have bigger footprints and bigger consequences than what I might have done so far.
An impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. So Ramya, today's our conversation or the show, absolutely right, is about me looking at your handwriting and talking about certain aspects. And based on your questions, we'll go wherever you would like to.
Okay.
So if you ask me questions, anything that you feel you're either working on right now, contemplating, introspecting, or something that you generally felt throughout and you never had somebody to look at it and tell you. So anything to do with that kind of behavior and your patterns of thinking and how do you, enhance your own self, we can address many of them.
That sounds fascinating.
Thank you. So please go ahead and, over to you.
Okay. So should I just start with what I've written or
I would not read what you have written.
Okay.
So it's whatever you want
So
to
it's a
ask.
blank page.
Yeah, for me it's literally a graph on the paper. So if I indulge in the content, then I saw myself getting influenced by the content.
Oh.
So over a period of time, I learned or trained myself not to read what is written and just to look at it as a graph. Because then I'm impersonal. I'm not literally trying to analyze your thinking, and I'm only looking at the strokes.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay. So what does my handwriting tell you about my ability to sort of focus on projects at hand, get things done, make sure that they're done perfectly or done well or done on time? What does that say?
So you love challenges. That's your thing. So if the challenge gets over, you do not know how to look at that project. Then you're like, oh, okay, but I thought it would challenge me, stimulate me, question me, take me into places or areas that I have not gone before. So that is your most important turn on with any project. So people wonder why you work so hard. Why do you have to put in so much of energy? Why are you on our heads to do better? This is basic minimum and we can get away with it. For you, it is not about any of it. You are like, if I'm here, I'll give my 2,000 units. I was about to say 2,000%. And I said, oh, that just defies the concept of percentage.
Yeah.
So I would give my complete self or I won't be here.
All or nothing.
All or nothing.
Yeah.
And it's not only in projects, but that's how you are in everything in life. You're all or nothing.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's what makes you so authentic and for some people, intimidating.
Yeah, but I've read recently that, intimidation is not on me. It's on the other person.
Yeah.
They have to deal with it. So, okay, that's interesting. So, I find that a lot of my work related sort of queries is that I know what I have to do.
Right.
And I know how to do it.
Right.
But oftentimes, your personality gets in the way of doing it the best you could. You're sort of, it's like you
I would not call it personality. I would say your projections.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have decided how the project should shape up, and then you have imagined it to be in a certain way, and then you have indulged into it, and you romanticize the idea, and then you made it yours, and it becomes your baby, which everything comes from so much of energy, power, force for other people as they look at it, because it is a personal journey. For you, that project is not out there, the project is in here, and that matters to you. So when you invest so much of energy, when you love something so much, then when other people do not treat it with that much respect, you can't handle it. When other people do not see the bigger picture of why they function, they must do what you're asking them, requesting them, suggesting, or demanding them to do. you lose your temper for sure. You get irritated much before that. Temper losing or not happens depending on the situation, but you definitely feel uncomfortable when they do not value it, and you feel it in your gut. So it's not in their action. They say, but I worked for 3 hours. You're like, yeah, I know you worked for 3 hours, but it's not about 3 hours. You see, it is about being present, being committed, being responsible. And when you don't see people doing the way you function, you think they're not doing good enough, which I feel is an area we must look at.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely some impatience about expectation versus reality for me, for sure. That's definitely bang on. And I think a lot of times, maybe I oversimplify the problem, and I think
it is simple for you.
Yeah, so I think it's possible
because you're so invested into it, and also you are, compared to most people you have worked with, you're much quicker in terms of processing the information, coming to a conclusion, being resourceful. So that gives you that edge to pick up a larger project, challenge things, question things. That's what you do in general. But for people, they don't function like that. So for you, you find them slower. I'm not saying they're slow. You find them slower because you process things faster in certain ways. And there are other areas where you do not process it as fast as other people can do. But because work for you is an important area of your life, so you don't take it casually. For you, you identify with it. And leaders, professionals who identify with their work, it's a great thing. At the same time, it's a stressful thing. You feel more stressed than anyone else because you want them to function in the manner that is important. And if they don't, you take that load on your shoulders and you keep functioning and keep taking and taking and taking till a point you lose your either balance or patience.
I think over time I've sort of found it easy to sort of detach and be a little more, not casual. I don't think I could be casual, but more, just more stress-free about it. I think that's something I've worked on and tried to eliminate it as much as possible from my life. But do you think I could be doing more to make sure that that this aspect doesn't rule the way I approach deadlines or projects or just working with people? That there's an element of compassion and just getting things done but not focusing too much on the sort of delivery and focusing on enjoying the process as well.
So for you, being committed to the delivery is part of enjoying the process. So you're not saying it for the heck of it, that you want to feed so many people. You're not talking about this issue because you must. You're talking about it because it matters. For somebody, when things matter, they cannot pretend that they don't. Right? So the stress is not about why they don't get it. That is your reaction. The stress is about, what if I do not deliver what I have sought out for?
Yeah, that's true.
And when you look at it from that end, I feel that when you have an intent of doing something so big, so large, and I'm going to come to this large long-term thinking in 1 minute, but when you have that kind of an intent, let's look at it, okay? You're working, but also you're kind of working with nature or the overall support system, and other parts can join you, and they do join you, right? But when you take complete ownership and say, but I have to do this, I have to do that, and I have to be responsible for everything, in a way, you dismiss other people, other things that can truly contribute because they don't look that shade of blue that you had in mind.
Possibly. But I find that in this specific job, because I'm working on something that's so new that I've had to learn quite a lot to sort of get acquainted with, there is a real sense of like camaraderie and learning from peers, and
it will be until you get this. So you know what I'm saying? So when you are a student, you're that diligent, and I was talking about, let me come back to this point. So the point is, you always thought long term. Even as a child, you thought about what would you do when you would grow up. You pretty much thought you would do this, and you kind of found your way to do this. But you literally wanted to build a long term idea throughout. So a person like that, who is driven by a larger project that is like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line, with other people who are end result oriented. Their issues are 2 years, 3 years, maximum 5 years down the line. And they want to say buy a house, or they have their personal priorities. So there is a mismatch to begin with. So it is not their responsibility to get you, but it is your responsibility to break your ideas, to make it available to them, which most people who have long-term thinking totally miss. They feel, okay, but I got it and I did it. And it's like, this is what we must do. For you, it is easier because you look at the world from that bird eye view. But somebody whose leg is stuck on a branch, even he is a bird, can't see it for what you can see it for. So there is a difference like that. And you, from that bird eye view, are like, but why are you not getting it? It's so simple. For you, yes. Because you're flying and you're up there and you can see it. For somebody who's stuck, it's not there. It's not available.
Yeah.
It's not in their perspective.
So how does one get into that sort of mode of putting on someone else's hat or stepping in someone else's shoes? Because I've tried to do it with some degree of success, but I also feel like sometimes I'm overthinking things I shouldn't be.
So I feel instead of like trying to have a formula around it, I rely a lot on asking a question. For example, I would ask myself in the middle of a session. So let me use my analogy here. So I meet different people. And most of the time, I do not have any context of where you come from, other than handwriting. Not only on the show, but otherwise as a coach. So when I get into the conversation and when I'm trying to understand the person, imagine having a fixed idea. Then it does not fit the person next time, and every time I have conversation with different people. So I ask myself, what do I require to look at here? What do I require to observe here? What do I require to learn from this person? And that question opens different doors because I'm not concluding, I'm asking a question. So I'm compassionate, I'm available. Also, for every conversation is a new conversation. I don't have preconceived ideas, which is where I said, oh, until you learn it. The very moment you learn it, you're like, okay, I got it. Now let me tell you what to do. And then the fun goes away. So the play will happen only when you're curious.
I think I am very curious though.
Right now, yes.
Project, in general, I think I'm one of the most like it's my kida.
I agree.
Yeah,
you're curious as a person, not curious as a boss or a leader. You would have curiosity towards ideas and you're experimental and you really jump into different areas. I'm talking about curiosity about the other person's perspective to that specific question. You're like, oh, what do I require to look at to communicate to this person? I have this bird eye view, but he does not see it or she does not get it. What do I require to look at? So I'm talking about that curiosity.
Okay.
Which is a different applied skill.
Which is a social skill rather than just a intellectual or a ideological kind of thing.
Completely social. And most leaders make or break their path by either being socially intelligent, emotionally intelligent or not.
Yeah.
So which is not the skill that is taught while becoming a leader.
Yeah.
But suddenly when you become one, you're like, oops, this is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can see that.
Yeah.
What would you say to, like, so basically, historically, I've just been someone who's had a very low threshold for boredom. So
you also meant bullshit.
No, but I'm asking about boredom.
Okay, we'll stick to that.
But, so, it's dictated so many things. Like, I'll be, so like you said, it's all or nothing. And there's a lot of sort of, looking at longer term, thinking about bigger
Right.
things you want to achieve. But there's also simultaneously a lot of doubt because you're coming in thinking, is this still exciting me? Is this really what I want to do? Is this really what I'll be doing in 5 years? Is this really what's going to matter? So, there's a lot of that undercutting,
Right.
not my commitment, but definitely a sense of like, how long is this going to last?
Do you see people around you asking you that question? Or like having that look in their eyes?
Towards me?
No, about like how long this gonna last?
No, because I think most people are very creatures of habit generally, and they have things
Accepted.
Yeah, they find their groove and they sit there for a long time and
Right.
make that groove very comfortable. But I think
No, I mean people around you, friends, family members, have they figured this out? I was asking from that
like
perspective.
that. Possibly. I guess.
So my family calls it, abhi naya update aaya hai iska. I totally understand what you're
Yeah.
saying, because it's always about like coming up with newer updates and figuring it out.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that is about boredom. I truly feel it's about being authentic to the process. Very few people have that courage or tenacity to ask these questions again and again. Because every time you ask that question, is it something, then you really have to go back and unlearn and ask different questions and create another path to learn, and address your curiosity. How many people have time, willingness to do it? And I feel that is a process where you stand apart from the crowd. Also, you do justice to your own curiosity. I think that's beautiful. That's who you are. Not everything that is uncomfortable must be changed about us.
Oh, okay.
It is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You have.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd have like a very neat answer where you'd be like, oh, this is the way to solve your boredom issue.
No, I think I think that's the beautiful part, because if you stay honest to being bored,
Yeah.
then you would change and you would learn and you would upgrade and you would go through that grind of stepping away from what works for everyone else. And you have done that again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is.
So I just, when I look at people, especially like these people I told you about, right, who do one thing for
Like
5
how?
years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I'm like, what is in your gene that makes you like that? Like it's fascinating for me because
But I want to address a part of you being consistent in a different way over 15, 20 years. And I'm going to address that after the break. Okay? So
All right.
So we'll talk about this more once we come back.
All right.
So Ramya, we were talking about building habits and having routines and how people are so settled for like 5-10 years and you believe you can't do it.
Yeah, I think, I haven't been able to do it.
So let me break your myth. I feel it is not about the activity that you are consistent about, and I agree with that. But there are parts of you where you have been consistent about breaking barriers, consistent about, not being inauthentic to your own boredom, consistent about, upgrading yourself. So that routine, that process has been completely consistent. So as a person, you're not an inconsistent person. Sometimes we tend to label ourselves looking at our career graph, or we look at it like, but I picked up this and then I didn't do it. And then I picked up something else and I didn't do it. But let me tell you, whatever you have picked up, you reached your level of satisfaction, no matter how tough or strenuous it was. You reached there and then you're like, okay, I got this and now I don't want to do it. So there was a moment of choice which you made and then you didn't do it, which is very different than being inconsistent. People just try things and then they give up and then they try things. You didn't do that.
So there is the 10,000 hour thing,
Yes,
right? Where
yes.
to be really good at anything, you need to put in at least 10,000 hours
Right.
practicing or becoming better at it. And I keep thinking, what is the thing that I've done that? I guess communications
I
is
was
something.
about to say, isn't it communication?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's just that I'm, like you said, I'm expressing it in different formats and in
Right.
different stints. And also maybe like our life is too complicated now for it to be like a very simple, like you get into one job and just stay in that forever. Like I don't know anyone who does that anymore.
But I also feel you get into one skill and then you keep building on it, which you did.
That's
so you
true.
have like more than 10,000 hours in this one skill. And because you're so intensely involved in it, you need other breathers.
Absolutely.
So if you look at the other things as just breathers, you won't be hard on yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I'm doing this 10,000, but I also want to go and flirt with, say, pottery, and just want to go with and flirt with painting, whatever you pick up, and more artistic than otherwise. But you just want to flirt with it, and if you know that that is my idea of doing it, then you won't bother yourself by with the idea of being perfect and being a professional or whatever in that other area.
But that's the thing, right? In my 20s, I remember I was interested in many things.
Right.
And I was doing only one thing.
Right.
And I remember at that point thinking, maybe what I'm really meant to do is this other thing that is so exciting to me, but that's not my job, right? Like it's just a hobby, or it's just like
which
I'm just
brilliant at.
But I love it. It's so fun. And then over time, I realized, like you said, you can actually do whatever you want to do in your free time.
Right.
Figure out whatever makes you happy, and not all of it has to become this bread and butter earning. Like this vocation.
Or also, no, not only that, but if you put your heart into it, you want it to be perfect. So there is also that other part of it. So it's not like you want to earn money out of it, but you just want to create a masterpiece.
Maybe you're giving me more credit than I will take.
I'm just saying you want to create. I'm not saying you're creating.
Okay.
Reality check.
Right. Yeah. I can live with that.
So that is the idea of somebody who has a higher self-esteem.
Oh.
It is very closely associated. Self-esteem is not self-confidence.
Okay.
It's not what you show other people. It is that private dialogue that you have with yourself when you're looking into the mirror, when you're talking to yourself. That's a self-referral point. So for you, that self-referral point is high. So you believe that if I do something, my job is to strive perfection, do it good, do it, in the best possible way, and leave some mark. Now that is tiring because you try to do it in everything. But if you understand, okay, these are the 3 things I'm going to do it completely, I'm going to give my 100% and build on it, and other things I'm going to experiment with. That is very relaxing. Even when I'm talking about it, I suddenly feel that, the pressure on other things, if you just remove that and make it play, they will become your relaxing points. Right now you get into a so-called relaxing activity and become very, very, very ambitious about it. So
yeah, I think figuring out what's work and what's play, and why it's okay for some things to remain at play has taken a while.
Yeah, I hear you. I totally hear you.
So yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else that you perceive about me that you think I should be working on, or that could be areas of improvement for me?
Yes, I feel of late, and by of late I mean probably say 3 to 4 years, you have been sensitive about other people's criticism about your work. Before this, when people criticized, you heard them. Not that you enjoyed being criticized ever, but at that time it was okay for them to say whatever. And you did not take it to heart. Now, in this period, I feel the sensitivity has gone up. As you said, intimidation is not about you, it's about other people. I feel criticism is not about other people, but about you. Because when somebody criticizes, they might be giving their opinion, or they're saying things, or they, whatever, being harsh or mean or whatever. But when you receive it, the way you process it, it becomes yours. So criticism is, if it affects you, it is your baby to deal with and your job to clean. So if you would like to talk about it more, we can explore.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating, right? Because a lot of my work, which I put out in the last couple of years, and you're absolutely right, a lot of writing is basically constant editing and being okay with people sort of telling you how to make it better, and taking that feedback in and actually transmuting it onto the paper and saying, yes, this is how I'll make it better. It's hard when people are criticizing the work that you've written to not make it about yourself, right?
Of
it's very hard to say, oh, that's just something on the page, it's not to do with me.
And also when you have built your perspectives and you've given your love and care to everything that you have written, of course.
Absolutely. So the thing is, though, you have to be open to it to actually improve. If
Right.
you're not, then you're sort of stagnating and you're not learning.
Right.
So how do you get there? Like, how do you get that fine line where you're not, this mess of emotions or this mess of like oversensitivity because someone is telling you how to improve something, right? How do you?
So let's begin with, let's take a step back before we even come to this feedback space. Let's take a step back. Now, you might have caught yourself analyzing the person giving feedback.
Oh, in what way?
Like, when people give feedback, you first have to really trust that other person's opinion.
That's true.
Yeah. So most of the time, because you have always been that person who understand, observe, see people in a certain way and then only take feedback. Here, when people giving feedback, and as I understand, it's also online, people saying things.
No. It could be like people I really know, value, have entrusted with giving me feedback.
I'll come to that. But it's also mixed with other feedback.
It's mixed with random people telling you, right? Yeah.
So random people telling you would not work for you easily, for sure. You would look at it for what it is and it would be like, So I'm also addressing that. Sometimes a random feedback can stay, but for you it's important where the source is.
Yeah.
People who you trust, you feel are unable to look at your process. There is that part of the story. Because your process has evolved, you have become a different person, especially in last 4 years. The internal process that you have gone through and the journeys emotionally that you have gone through, you have become a different person. So when somebody edits something or gives feedback keeping the old you in mind, you do not agree with it. So when you don't agree, pretending to be okay with any criticism is not of any use. So let's first understand. Let's first get that space cleared. And once you say, okay, now let me come to my openness to look at feedback, my openness to look at things. So when things become super personal, when they define you, it is the difficult part. So is there anything that you used to be defined by that you found your way around?
For the longest time, I was defined by the fact that I was a broadcast journalist. And I haven't done that in a very long time now.
Right.
So I found a way around that by being more of a content creator, a director, a writer, and all those other things. I think I'm very self-aware that I sort of update my image of me compared to what people think of me very quickly.
Right.
I think for a long time I struggled with sort of just consuming content versus creating it.
Okay.
And in the last 4 years, I've actually done more of creating it. So it's also a risk, right? You're putting yourself out there. You're trying to do something that, it's very easy to sit back and say, I could have done a better job of that. But when you're actually doing it, you realize, that's why it's so hard. Because it looks simple, but it's not.
And in this process, you just answered what I really wanted to talk about, is when you see the impact of your work, then it does not become about your work. When you see that content out there being consumed by other people, then you don't tell yourself, Ramya, you could have done a better job. It's about the impact it created. And then it is not personal. So when you write something, it becomes personal because you do not have the impact in mind. You don't have only writing in mind. My skill, my connect in mind. But if we just remove the focus and we say, okay, but why are you writing? It's towards something. And if you keep that impact, that person, that reader in mind, then you are extremely open to change anything.
That's very true.
Yeah. But here, because there is no audience, there is no impact that you have in mind, it becomes personal. And for our listeners also, I just want to talk about this for 1 minute, is when we make things about us, we are completely being absorbed in how perfect can I be. Whereas when we realize I'm doing this towards a goal, an idea or impact or really making a difference, then you really become kind to yourself.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I feel like,
it's about kindness. It's not about criticism in that sense.
Yeah. I can see that.
For example, I am a dyslexic. And many a times, the reason why I can read between the lines is because I can't read on them.
Yeah.
But also that comes with like speaking or missing some pronunciations and dealing with, certain constructions. And it's difficult. And there are moments where it just takes over. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to do an audio medium. Because I struggled, right? Like it did not sound the way I wanted, because I heard other people and they sounded so cool. And I said, I also want to, but... And there was a moment last year, I was dealing with something and I saw how many people require to hear this. And I hear my own sessions and I said, people need this. And when people describe their problems, it became impersonal. Then I'm like, okay, if I'm imperfect, if I screw up, if I say something I should not, that's okay. But we have to get this out. And then the impact became bigger than your personal idea of you.
Yeah, I think a lot of it also, while you said there's a lot of high self-esteem in there for me, I think it is, eventually when you start putting your work out there, putting yourself out there, whether it is in terms of writing or anything that you create, or leadership in terms of starting something of your own, maybe especially with women, maybe especially with people of my generation, there is the imposter syndrome. Like it's the elephant in the room you can't
ignore and talk about both.
And it's taken me quite a while to like get over it. Like just be like, this is nonsense. I should not have to deal with this.
Sure.
And I see, but it's like a struggle, right? Because you're constantly like, it's this self-evaluation that happens where you're like, do I deserve this? Am I good enough?
Sure.
Am I doing the best enough job with all the opportunities that have been given to me? How could I do this better? And I think one thing that really helped me, and I don't know if there are other ways to deal with it, is that I always stop and say, in 5 years, will this matter? And the answer is no, I move on. If the answer is yes, I figure out I need to answer the problem at hand. But then most things, like in 5 years, it's not going to matter. So why do you bother?
Also, like going back to the birds example, in 5 years, it might not matter that whether I was stuck to a branch or not, but today it does.
Yeah, that's true. So when it's stuff like that you need to deal with inherently and right away, then yeah. But a lot of things actually are just built up in our head and we don't need to deal with it. Like you don't need this cloud of like doubt,
I agree. You don't need it, but it comes. And I feel ignoring it is also not the solution. So addressing it could be.
Yeah.
So we have doubts because we lack clarity and our priorities. Whatever clarity that we talk about. So what if we take 5 minutes a day to really align to that clarity? Whatever that clarity is. And we forget that. Days being women also, we go through our own emotional and hormonal drama or painting within. So literally because of that, and also because of our habits, we do not give those 5-10 minutes every day to ourselves to align. So if you make that as a habit, it's a great habit. So it's about knowing why am I doing whatever I'm doing. And that just becomes an internal guide to look at everything. Then we are not rushing, pushing ourselves. Forget about other people. I also feel sometimes you have to push other people. You have to like become the stronger, authoritative person. I read something very beautiful. People talk about ego as a wrong thing, right thing, all of that, doubt, no doubt. Sometimes you need to be completely vulnerable, no ego at all. There are moments where you require certain kind of ego. And that person, while describing, said, ego is like your shadow. It shows as per the position of the sun. So it's not something that you carry around, you talk about, you impose. You can't create your shadow. But depending on the situation, you become that authority. Like no ego is not a great space.
It may work for some situations, but it's not long term.
It is not a great space. You need no ego also means no identity.
Exactly.
It's not helpful.
Yeah.
So you need some self identity, which is also considered as ego, but not unhealthy one. But it is situational. It is never a permanent idea of you. So you have to you require to jump in and do whatever is required in the moment, and that's how your ego moves, and so your doubt. If you need to learn something, if you don't have doubtful questions, how will you learn?
That's true.
Yeah, you require that some sort of doubt, but I don't know how to do it. Can you help me? That can you help me won't happen if you are not asking that question, or you don't have doubt about how can I make it better. But doubt, like your shadow, can't walk around everywhere. So no doubt is not a solution. But appropriate, required questioning is required. Like you can't avoid that. But carrying it everywhere and doubting yourself in everything, again unhealthy. So it's like, should I stop sugar or should I eat it? Should I, these are the questions. Should I go off carbs or should I eat carbs in every meal? What if you like literally eat as much as you feel comfortable with? Similarly, like we understand that about food, we don't understand, or somehow we are not taught to understand that about our thinking, about our patterns, about how we look at life.
I think it takes a lot of courage and a lot of clear self-assessment to get to that space, and not everyone
And it's not easy.
has the privilege of doing that also,
It's
right?
not
Like it's not
easy,
just
yeah. Oh, I agree. It's also not having the privilege, because
Yeah.
sometimes you understand certain things about yourself. What do you do with it?
Yeah.
If you have to still go and do work at a job that you do not enjoy, or that's your commitment, what do you do about
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
Having said that, I also feel secretly analyzing or assessing or accepting yourself is a process that is a habit. We can always build that habit, periodically. And I felt our previous generation did that as part of their life. They were like somehow taught to do that. Now we are just getting more busy with external things that we are struggling with, attached to. All of that we do now a lot more than giving ourselves that time.
Which brings me to this next question, which I think, so goal setting, as not just for your professional, but also in terms of life goalposts, right? It's really evolved for our generation in the sense that the traditional ones don't really matter or exist in the same way anymore.
True.
So how does one do that goal setting then going forward? Like the one question I always dread anyone asking me is like, where do you see yourself? Like that it just gets my goat. But honestly, it would be like a superpower to know exactly what I needed to be doing to get to where I need to go in 5 or 10 years, right?
I agree with you, and people in my profession also like ask these questions as professionals, like, what is your vision, what is your mission? I always refrain myself from getting into that space, and I'll tell you why. I believe the process that you follow is very, very important. Is very, very crucial. Like if you reach wherever your goal is, and if you're miserable through the process, what is the value of doing it? Like what is the point of doing it?
True.
Secondly, I feel goals are momentary. If you reach there, then what? You sit
It's a
there.
win.
Yeah,
It's
and
a
you say,
win.
wow,
Yeah.
for 2 minutes or like 2 months.
No, it depends on what your goal is.
Okay.
No. So, for instance, that's why I say, right, it's not just about goal setting for yourself. If it's like, say, goal setting that I will be plastic free by
course.
2025.
Right.
Right? That's a personal goal. You're setting it for yourself, but it has humongous impact on our surroundings.
Agreed.
And I think maybe we need to be moving towards goals that are more aligned with our community or our, like who we are as a planet.
Yeah, I agree.
Rather than just, I want to make sure I have a 3-bedroom house.
Yeah, but I mostly goals are looked at as that,
Yeah.
like some achievements.
Yeah.
Now here you're actually talking about a process. When you say plastic free, it's not a goal. It's a life choice, lifestyle decision.
Yeah.
And now you are not saying I've achieved it, I've arrived here. You said here on I'm going to be here.
Absolutely.
So it's a process.
Yeah.
And processes are powerful. And I feel once you imbibe a process, then you don't have to like struggle with whether option A is visible or option B. You literally believe in the process.
So the goal is then becoming that and staying that. It's not so much hitting a target and then moving on.
And I changed the words here a bit to define the goal in that sense. I call it aspect list. An aspect list is about all the elements, all the aspects that you want to experience as your life. In life you want to feel plastic free because you want to have the aspect of feeling responsible. Then you also want to feel comfortable, so you have financial wealth or enough support as your aspect. Now, why do we want this? Because we don't want a life that is imbalanced. We want those aspects that you can fulfill to be part of your life. But goals are about achieving them one day. Process and aspect is about creating it as much as possible today. So you will become, say, plastic free in 2025. But today you can start walking towards it. You can imbibe that as a concept and can build a process around it or create the process over a period of time. So it's not one day I will achieve a goal. It's I will build a process that I can imbibe and live in every moment or every day or, depending on what your aspect list is. People, a lot of time, they wait. and then they feel achieving that goal will fulfill something about me, about that area. And I never see people happy with that approach. Whereas people who have picked up the process of being in that energy, so one day I will perform at, an artist setting that goal that I will perform in front of, say, X number of people, but every day doing the riyaz and building that skill towards it is the process. And that is the aspect. Having a goal, having a milestone, having a target is a good idea, but being driven by goals, I feel, is blinding.
That's fascinating. I mean, that's not what you're taught, right? Like, you're always taught to work towards something and taught to have like a larger sort of agenda. And if you don't know where you're going, how are you defining your purpose in life? But I think it's very freeing to sort of think of it as I want to build these characteristics within me and build these capabilities rather than just, I want to do this by this time.
Yeah, and when you are working with your aspects and your process, you're fully available in every moment. Whatever I want to do tomorrow or after this conversation, I'll do that. But now I'm here with you, and having that freedom in your heart that you're not rushing and you're not going somewhere else, and you're not like, oh, but what if it does not happen? Then all my efforts are useless. That is not available, because the process is also as satisfying. And I really, really love that. I feel high performance, I work as a high performance coach. I feel high performance is being highly involved in this moment to begin with. If you're constantly running somewhere else, you will be stressed out. If you're anxious about what's going to happen tomorrow, you will be stressed out. Then you're not performing better in this moment, on this project, any which ways. So who are we fooling to begin with?
So in your mind, what is the key to performing the best every day? Like, what are is it breaking down what you need to do into tasks? Is it having like a clear sense of what your time is and setting goals that are very sort of achievable in a short burst of time? Like people say, like 20 minutes, see what you can do in that, and then go take a break and walk. Or how do you get to that high performance space?
I feel first thing, very, very important one, is to ask questions and have that curiosity, childlike behavior every day. So I have certain questions that I would design for every person. For you, I would definitely talk about, what can I contribute today? That is an important question that you can, ask for many, many years. Also, it will weave into your overall theme of life. So you want to contribute, whether you do that through content, through being plastic free, whatever you choose. So you genuinely ask that question every day. And asking it every day is like literally opening the door. Your day is new. You don't know what's going to show up today. We don't know where we're going to go, whom we're going to meet. But having that question as your clarity point allows you to find, okay, how do I contribute in this situation? Going back to the question I said, what do I require to observe here to contribute more? So if your colleague understands your goal better, or that larger picture better, then you contribute better. So if you're woven to your contribution, then you'll do anything required.
Yeah, that's a great sort of umbrella philosophy to live by day in, day out.
Yes.
That has as much relevance on a daily level as a macro level.
And that is an aspect. That's not a goal.
Yeah.
So the aspect of contribution, and as I look at it, I feel that defines you at a larger level as a person. So why not to imbibe it? And what you can do, other people can't. So you pick up that contribution, you say, I own it, and let me give my 200% to it. Point number one. Point number two is to build a routine. It's not whimsical. Performance doesn't happen one fine day. It is every day. And though I have, this question running, I have certain things that I would work towards every day. So that building your high performance routine, knowing that what puts you into your best possible self. And that comes with observations, introspection, so many things. But having that physical act of doing certain things, thinking about going plastic free is easy. To do it, you'll have to make some everyday choices, and that becomes your routine. Or whatever skill you pick up, doing riyaz every day or doing your meditation every day, whatever that is, it doesn't matter what it is, you decide what it is for you, but doing that constant routine or riyaz is the second point. Third, I feel, is every day in the night 5 minutes alignment or journaling. when we journal, when we ask certain questions and review our day, it just brings in better perspective. Next day you can do a better job, and you can change certain things if you like. But not reviewing at all and going blindly through the life journey is not fun.
But so I think I'm fairly self-critical. Sometimes I have this perception issue where I think like I'm harder on my work than other people are on me. So is there a negative consequence of doing things like journaling for someone like me?
Yeah, journaling might not mean why did I do this. Journaling might mean that what was amazing in today's day. If my idea to begin with was to contribute, where did I contribute today?
Right.
So it is not always like being critical, and I hear you. It's not writing diaries the way we used to write as kids and we were told. It is journaling by asking specific questions.
Yeah.
And going to bed feeling grateful is one of the best things you can do. Your entire sleeping time is like recharging your gratitude.
Yeah, that's
a
true.
great thing. Yeah.
Wow.
And research has proven this. It's not only like feeling good and having none of that. Affirmation, some people do it. It's not about that. It's genuinely feeling grateful, not pretending to feel grateful. So if you're grateful for today I wrote one paragraph and that was so cool and I really enjoyed the process, stick to that. That's okay. It has to be authentic and real.
Okay.
I have a question for you before we end the conversation.
Sure.
If we want to truly engage to this process, what you're talking about, how one can contribute in the clean planet space, what can we do? We are not on the path that you are, but for all of us, listeners, and for me, what can we do? Like 3 things that if you can tell us to do on a daily basis.
So, what we're working towards are building an ecosystem of products and creating an ecosystem where entrepreneurs can create those products so that it's really a question of just making a more ethical choice.
Okay.
So, it's early days, but there are, more ethical ways to consume whatever you're consuming.
Okay.
Having a sort of conscious consumption rather than a very sort of mindless sort of consumption is the first step where you examine what you're putting into your body.
Okay.
If you need more protein, where is that protein coming from?
Right.
Is it sourced ethically? Or is it sourced without any of the negative things that you generally see in the way our food is produced? Can you be eating healthier without sacrificing a lot of things that you have come to take for granted, like taste or, great flavor or
How about price? Is it expensive?
Price as well. Currently, there's products like Good Dot in the market which are very competitive.
Okay.
They're made out of soy, so they are competitive for now.
Right.
If you have cell-based meat, which we're calling cultivated meat, it will be expensive to begin with. So that's something that is prohibitive to start off with, but over time, as economies of scale kick in, it will become cheaper for people to do it. And this happens with all great technology, right?
The
first computer was
so expensive.
It
so
took
large.
up many rooms in NASA
Yeah,
or something,
exactly.
and now it's every hand holds a computer. So things are going to be evolving at a very breakneck speed. I think the main thing that you can do, rather than even 3 things, I think the main thing you need to be doing is just being conscious of how your choices have an impact on you personally and your health as well as the environment. And, so for some people, animal welfare is a part of it. For some people, they don't really care. For some people, it's about, their health and their personal sort of journey towards becoming the fittest, healthiest person that they can be. And for some people, it's really about being mindful that we have only this one planet, this land, and growing all those, growing feed like soy or wheat or whatever, and feeding it to animals, and then growing those animals and raising them, and then slaughtering them, and then having that meat as food is not sustainable for all of us. Definitely not in the coming years. And it's not something that is efficient. It's not something that is going to be practical in the coming years, given, the kind of greenhouse gases that this whole process emits. So we need to start thinking of alternatives. And the great thing is that I'm very optimistic that the human mind always finds a solution when it really needs to.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be open to these solutions rather than, prejudge or come up with sort of...
So basically give it a try.
Give it a try.
So if you don't know where it goes, at least giving it a try would be a good idea.
Yeah. And I think I don't want to be preachy because that's not the point of it. No one is telling you what to do. And I would hate to be the person who's like, oh, you need to eat like this. And, that's just not the point of it at all. But I think the idea that you are conscious of what you're doing.
Right.
And if you're doing something like eating meat consciously, please do it.
Of course.
No one is here to tell you what to eat or not to
There's
eat.
nothing right or wrong about it.
And there is nothing right or wrong. It's about individual palates and individual taste. But I think we need to be mindful of sustainability.
Okay.
That's the key question.
Makes sense.
Is it sustainable? Is it something that all of us can get our food from? Is it a way to feed all of us and give us all the nutrition we need? Because that's a big thing in India, right? We on the one hand, we have malnutrition and people stunting, and there's not enough growth for a third of us. And on the other hand, we also have obesity. We have people who are struggling with high BMIs and being obese, and all the lifestyle diseases.
And also like working out and like doing so much to not be obese.
Well, that's great if you can manage that. But most of us are on some end of the spectrum, which is not particularly great for us.
Right.
So there are so many advantages to what we're trying to do. The basic thing is to just figure out, why not? Why not
give it a try?
Yeah.
Give it a try. Looks like a simpler thing to do also.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, you can always choose what you're choosing.
And it is a concept of choice. It is absolutely like a free will sort of scenario where you just decide what works for you. I think there is a lot of literature about how individual choices are not going to make a big dent on the environment, that it's actually big corporations that need to step up, and on a policy level, on a large scale level, we need to sort of effect change if we want to stick to the Paris Accord, stick to our 2 to 3 degree hike. But I think as individuals, we have power and we can exercise it.
Oh yeah, and if you as consumers, if you don't buy certain things, if we change it,
we have the power to change a lot of things. So I think that power of the consumer is also something we should activate.
Mm-hmm. Sounds very, very good. Thank you so much for doing the work that you do and talking about it and spreading awareness, and secondly for being on the show.
Thank you so much. This was such a pleasure.
It was truly.